if you want to open the
We're excited to become for us to do that. It started I think we could be to be able to access. That was the importance of the program, was to be an economic development tool. So I've known Mark for about 3 years now, and he's excellent to work with, and we're excited to have him here and spend the afternoon with us to start being a CLG today.
So congratulations, and this presentation is really set up in heavy. And then we talk about the CLG and you can access to help people with their stuff that you may do day to day. Please feel free to stop me and ask. Slow me down if you need to slow me down. Things that we were chartered to be a nonprofit to do collect. Sales pitch on the fact that we're also a nonprofit and you can be a member. But again, everything we're working with today is from our state agency.
Join.
We are working together in different groups. So we're trying every day, you're like, why is this over here? Why is this here? Why are you trying to figure this out? So I want to kind of go through how preservation came to be like a profession type thing in the United States, and then talk a little bit about the different organizations that play in with that. So I'm going to take you right all the way back to 1850 to talk about the Hasbrook House, which is a house where George Washington had his headquarters for the last 2 years of the Revolutionary War. In the 1800s, appalled at the house. Appalled at the house of our first president. Ladies from every state, and they set about rehabbing it, opening. Then is the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Mount Vernon, they're the ones that are running it, so. That's really the first time a group of I mentioned History Colorado, my Natural History Society. We didn't go in and actually preserve it, say we that property from.
Is the president the
National parks and stuff? Congress does national parks, national park develops things that he was looking to be able to protect certain lands. And you look at a lot of things that we have today, like Grand Canyon National Park started out as a national monument. There's many, many others that's the way they started out as well. They're now our national parks. The other thing that happened in 1906 was the designation of Mesa Verde National Park, and that was done by Congress. And one of the things that makes it very, very significant is it's the first, not natural, is the Charleston Old and Historic, coming there to see all the antebellum houses and see how the Old South was and those type of things. Well, in late 1930s, Shell Oil came in and they said, well, people need a gas station down there. Here, so they tore down a historic home, bought it, tore it down, put in a gas station. Well, the people in Charleston totally flipped out because they're like, Shell Oil could do it, everybody else could do it too. They said, we got to figure out something to do. And so Charleston came up with the idea of a historic district. It had never been done. Nobody knew if it was legal, if you could even do it, if you could protect buildings or whatever. Charleston in 1931 enacted the first historic preservation ordinance at the local level. So it's a pretty big deal that they did that. And again, nobody at that time knew whether it was really even legal to do it, but they decided they needed to do it to preserve their economy, and that's what they did. And one side note that's really interesting in this story is the Shell Oil station, gas station that was put up is now historic. Do is go on the Library of Congress. To get on there, you don't have to pay anything. Mechanically, because there's no way to document that as time passes. You see in the drawing in San Juan County. There, so you can understand how that process works. So you got all that information there as well. To tell you how different things they're doing, they do the documentation of that. And students from the University of Denver at University of Colorado have another exciting way to do these things. So also during the Depression, moving on, they passed in 1935 the Historic Sites Act. Service came and acquired it, and they built it back through plans and drawings and all that stuff. Historic landmarks that we have. So everybody always asks me what the 25 are, so I brought a list. I'll pass it around for you guys to look.
Now, they've been able to.
Yeah, you stole mine. You may have one of those, a National Historic Landmark list or not, but the National Park Service is working. I'm not sure exactly. Links Lodge, which was an African American retreat back when African Americans could not go to regular resorts and that type of thing. So they're looking at that as well for a National Historic Landmark. So we've got two in Colorado being considered right now.
And are those congressional, decided at the congressional level?
They do not have to be decided at the congressional. No, it's something that's decided through the National Park Service.
Okay, so they can process that.
They can process it, yeah.
So that, I guess that way.
It's a long, arduous process because they want to make sure that they feel very, very confident there is a good case for national significance for this. So it's one of these things that takes a couple of years for it to happen and lots of research and study. It's not a quick process at all. Yeah. So for the temple, you're going to be waiting a while before you know if it is. It's pretty exciting. So I want to move on to 1966. And the reason I want to move to 1966, that was a pretty big year as far as historic preservation goes. But do you guys have an idea of what was going on in the country in 1966? A lot of crazy stuff. One of the things that you were looking at is that people were coming back from, had come back from the war, and they were looking to move and have places of their own. And so this is really the time that people were moving out of the city, into the suburbs, into all this tract housing and all these neighborhoods that we have that are subdivisions. Because people were moving out there, and people were like, okay, what are we doing with the cities? Because the cities, they decided that they needed to do something to take and get rid of them. And the idea of parking lots. If you ever
2015, it requires historic
preservation as part of urban renewal. That's very interesting how it's come full circle.
All the way.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I wanted to show you downtown Denver because it really shows you how this urban renewal the corner of the department store. So that's it for the interstate system. And at that time, when you were building the interstate, if you need to go from point A to point B, you went in a straight line, and no matter what was in the way, you knocked it down. And that caused all kind of, anxiety, because all kind of great neighborhoods and buildings and things were getting knocked down, because this is where. So while all that is going on, their conference of mayors started talking like, are we really, really doing the right thing here? Got together and they can parts of their what was working, what wasn't, and how. This study, once they did it, and they took this with historic preservation. Oh, because the federal government would not have done this had it not been for the Conference of Mayors. So that's why we have the National Historic Preservation Act.
Just because I'm curious, it came up in my job this week, a Section 106 review process. We'll do that for Space to Create because we got the grant. What is that?
I've got a whole section.
Okay, never mind. Then I'll be excited to learn.
So I'm going to talk real quickly through what things we've got. The National Historic Landmark, the National Historic Preservation Act, and then we'll. So, maybe you want to put. It doesn't make any difference in their life. It's not really. Historic landmarks is. So. For Colorado, but every state is required to have a state historic preservation. It also committed all the organizations, but what this Department of Commerce, Department of Interior that work there, so it's not big and huge like most of these agencies. But what it was. So anyway, it kind of monitors what all the different agencies are doing throughout the United States with historic preservation, make sure they're considering historic preservation in their actions. I will skip over Section 106 down to the next one just a minute, because what it also, this act also did, it set up a federal preservation program in every department of the federal government. So all these departments that you have, like we mentioned, Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, they all have a federal preservation officer is on staff with them. And the advisory council works with those federal preservation officers to make sure those agencies are considering historic preservation. It may be historic preservation from the BLM because they have archaeological sites on their land. It may be historic preservation for the courthouse because the courthouse is a historic building. So it varies a whole lot with how these different agencies have to deal with it. But every agency does have a historic preservation program, historic preservation officer, and the advisory council works with those guys to make sure. We'll talk more about in depth. Then you have to. What it's going to do is going to create a process where that agency that's funding it or permitting it or whatever goes in and checks to see with the action they're doing, will it have an effect on historic building, historic property, whatever. If it does, can that be avoided in any way? If it can't be avoided to get done what you need to get done, how are you going to mitigate the fact that you have messed up this historic building or plowed through this archaeological site or whatever the case may be? What are you going to do to take care of that? So it doesn't go in and force anybody to do anything. It forces people to have a discussion about, is this going to affect the historic property? And if so, what can we do as a preservation commission?
Accesses several federal dollars. One being the housing, the 9% low-income housing tax credits.
Right.
There's an example of a different agency, housing HUD,
Yeah, we work
that's
a lot on
requiring
HUD.
that. Yeah. So anyway, we just are looking at consultants right now to do it for us. So.
Okay, great.
Thanks for answering it. That's
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the process later at the end of the thing, but that gives you a general idea of what it is. So the federal government came in here in 1966, the duties of historic preservation. Hawaiian tribe, those kind of things. Then you 2023, so we know because you don't ever know exactly how much you got. If they don't pass the budget on time at the federal level, then we're just kind of stuck waiting to see what's going to happen. And so right now we're operating under the impression that we're going to get what we got the year before, and we'll see how that comes out. But makes things a little interesting.
We had that same conversation with the EDA this week related to a sewer loan, yeah.
You just
Exactly,
never-
no, they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of play the game and hope for the best.
Right.
And Colorado is lucky in the fact that because of our cash flow situation that we have, we're able to front that. Some states really. Moving along between the State Historic Preservation Office locals out, who are the ones that came up and said we certified local government program to have a way for the state and the federal government certified local government program to have a way for the what I was doing was building this office. What I was doing was building this office tower. The station was making all kind of money for the concessionaires that were in the park that was there, people going through there to ride the trains and all this stuff. And so, therefore, New York City had the right to regulate because they were not taking away all. So this Supreme Court case said what Charleston decided it was going to do back in 1931 was legal and that people could do it. So if you guys are going in and designating buildings, and if you decide to tell people what they can and can't do, aren't losing their economic benefit of the property itself by you regulating, you can do it. So you have to be careful how you do things, but you can still do that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, as we go along, what's good regulation, what's bad regulation. But this is what gives us the legal authority to go in and do the designation that local groups do. All right, that's
So half the money comes from the preservation fund, is the other half gambling here in Colorado?
that's how.
That's how the state part's funded.
Originally, for years, the state funded through their general budget,
Okay.
the other half, and then
Lose the,
well, you know, it's.
or do you think it was better to be in the general fund?
Well, we have two opinions on that.
Okay.
With it coming from the state historical fund, it's more consistent for us. We don't have to worry about what the budget is with the state, whether we're gonna get our funding to do what we need to do. But at the same time, before 2003, all
is a historic
trail, that's a congressionally designated, is done through the. And again, I'm gonna kind of go through this quickly, so ask me any questions that you want. Things that are in the National Historic Preservation Act to take care of. So ask me any questions that you want. Things that are in the national, they're the ones that
To the National Park Service.
yeah, you come to the money we're going to get for the historic preservation fund. Congress sends that through the National Park Service to us. So we work with the National Park Service to get all that money transferred and to make all that work out. They also do some preservation grants and stuff like that. They have the Save America's Treasures grants, and those grants are for brick and mortar projects that are either National Historic Landmarks or nationally funded from 2009 or
Significant on the register.
right.
Okay.
For instance, one of the things that came up recently is Boggsville was interested in looking at getting Save America's Treasure. Can we amend our nomination to be nationally significant? And I think there's a possibility they can do that. So they're doing a study right now.
So with our National Historic District, Mark, if you were contributing in the district, could you apply for that grant?
Yes, and I don't know which level of significance you guys are at. And I knew, as soon as you said, I was like, gosh, I should do that. I don't know. We'd have to look that up. But if
Okay.
you were nationally significant and you were in that district, yes, your building would qualify for a grant like this.
I wonder if I ever something like
I don't know
that.
National Restaurant Nomination, because you have to check that on. So that's like if you have like an African American majority type stuff. So in Google, pop up. If you're trying to find it through the National Park Service, you have to click through like 10 different things to get there. But if you put in preservation briefs, it'll pop right up so you can find it. So if you're looking for this, that's the way to do that. They also run the National Center for Preservation Technology to help preserve building materials. For instance, you can't a neat project. In historic preservation of the national. A neat project. They name it a national treasure, and they try to projects. And the other one they have currently going on is the Tabor Opera House in Level that we mentioned before as well. The third one they had was Chimney Rock, which is out near Pagosa Springs in Archuleta County, and they were able to get that area declared a national monument by President Bush, and therefore that one is no longer a national treasure that they're working with because it's being taken care of through the national monument designation.
And you should know that our commission has a organizational membership with the Trust for Historic Preservation. We joined in January, so.
Okay, great.
Yeah. In fact, we worked with Dana to do a small grant for an appraisal on the Fox, and they received it. So
Right.
through the program, and we did that through the city, the Historic Preservation Commission and the city's membership that we just signed up for.
So that is one of the things they do. They have preservation grant programs. They actually have preservation grants programs specifically for Colorado because some donors made grants. The Endangered Places is a marketing program. They're going to try to get you attention to help you take care of your place. So they're going to just do marketing and that type of thing that they love the most. But it's still a great program, a great way to get recognition for those particular sites.
So at the Endangered Places Luncheon at CPI, that's the to the Endangered Places Luncheon this year.
Right. Yeah, it's the national program. There's some things that have gotten listed at the state level that Colorado Preservation has turned around and nominated for the national. And got a couple done that way, listed that way. They also own historic sites. They have one that they don't own, but they partner with the colonial names here in Colorado, and that is the Hotel de Paris in Georgetown. And so they help run and operate that with the colonial names there. They do preservation advocacy, like we were talking about before. They're no longer attached to the federal government, so they do a lot of lobbying work with Congress and with the presidential administrations, those kind of things. They have a preservation green lab in Seattle. And what that is how do we take these historic buildings and insert green technology without destroying the characteristics that make them historic? And so they're finding different ways to do that, different ways to put in energy systems, different ways to deal with windows, all these kind of things. So they're doing all kind of testing and study about how you make historic buildings greener. We mentioned the grants. They have a National Preservation Conference every year. It moves around the country. This past November, it was in Chicago. You are interested in learning more about historic preservation in general, is to go to one of these conferences. They have topics on a wide range of preservation events. But I will tell you, if you go, one of the best things about it is they always do great tours. So if you really want to learn about a city, if you want to know more about San Francisco, the Trust Conference is a great way to go because they'll have like 30, 40 different tours you can take during that, and they're in depth. They have local people taking you in buildings you wouldn't normally get in, taking you to sites to see. So that's one of the best reasons to go. I would love to get the different tours that they do if you go to those conferences.
Has it ever been in Denver?
It has, in 2003. So it's been a while since it's been. So if you guys, got a good project going, you've done really well with some stuff. So if you guys, got a good project going, you've done really well with some stuff, nominate it for an award. It's a nice presentation. This is a nice way to get ready. preservation. The big thing they have classes that teach you how to which is part of the tax code. So that was one of the big heavy topic that we're dealing with, but
This isn't related to the group that Mark was talking about. You know, the city engages a lobbyist, Debbie Wagner, some of you may have met her. She also is another client, works with History Colorado on some programs. But, and maybe this is later, so I don't want to steal your thunder again, but the state historic preservation tax.
you will go to. I've done a couple times, and it's all about things that you guys are going to do that have preservation commissions and just talk about the things they're doing. They move that around the country as well. The one that's coming up this year is in Des Moines, Iowa in July. So it's something that you guys may want to think about. I don't know the location of that one yet.
Des Moines shouldn't be too expensive.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so.
Some of them.
They do a thing called camp, and it's commissioned back to our community, and you pay. You can get several CLGs together to do that. Taking place this conference every other year, and what we do bring the NAPC view. Yeah, that's what you came to last year. And so what we work with a different local community to help put that together every time. So the one that's coming up in 2019, we're working with the city of Greeley to put that together. And I don't know what the topics are going to be yet, but over the next few months, we're going to be meeting Colorado Preservation District over in the and
That's like the number.
I mentioned it before. And it was done in consultation with the Ute tribe.
October, it was amazing.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what do we do in the realm of historic preservation? As I mentioned before, what the integrity is that, are you guys familiar with the Rabbit Eaters Motel sign in Steamboat Springs?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a really cool sign. I don't think I have a picture here. I can't remember, but you may see it, you may not. But anyway, it's a really cool historic sign at the hotel. The hotel's been changed so much, it's not really historic anymore, but the sign is. Well, it has a row all the way around it where incandescent bulbs screw in, and those don't work anymore. Being lit up in it. So it says it can't be on the National Register. It's changed too much because you don't have that. Well, it is on the state register because it still looks the same, it just doesn't have those bulbs on there. So it's a matter of integrity. They think it needs the bulbs to be able to be listed on the National Register. For the state, we say, well, it'd be great if it did have the bulbs, but it doesn't. But it still looks like the sign on the rest.
Inventory. So the last, and some of you who've been on the commission for a while have probably seen that 2001 inventory that we had done. And it has a column in there that talks about eligible, not eligible, eligible, not eligible. Is that when you do the inventory, do they study the buildings and make that determination of whether this building is really potentially eligible at what level?
Yeah. Well, actually, what we ask people to do when they do surveys that we're paying for through one of our programs, whether it's a CLG grant or a state historical fund grant, is every building that you survey, you tell us whether it's eligible for the National Register, eligible for the state register, eligible for the local register. That way, you guys, as a commission, when you get that document, you know where it fits. This is what we can do with this building, or we can't do anything. It doesn't meet any of the criteria for any of this. We ask surveyors to tell you what level it can hit. So,
and ours is there. Ours has that in it right now.
So it's very helpful to have that, yeah. We also do architectural and archaeological survey. We don't go out and do it ourselves, but we help people. the state historical fund. The federal government requires the state historic fund to look at every single federal project that goes on in Colorado. We look at about 3,000. Trinidad to be citizens. Any governmental entity that finds any human remains different people across the state. Farming around downtown Denver, and we zoom in. Another agency, Department of Local Affairs, excellent program to go in to help people use their historic assets to revitalize.
On Main Street as well, and I was with the chair yesterday, and we were looking at the resources. Preservation, but there's a significant part of it that is.
Main Street program, which is
Any of you met Tim Stroh when he came through?
the Main Street. It's very helpful for people. Their heritage assets and how to promote those. They have a program called Struggling in some way or fashion. They can go get a grant in those. They have a program called Struggling in some way or fashion. They can go get a grant in this. Redo. Your issue is and try to help you get that. Still working with some sites that were listed in 19 to be taken care of. What are all the issues that go on to that? So they deal with a lot of them continuously over time, trying to make a dent in what.
Our commission. What it would take to get off the endangered places standards, and I know Chairman Pritchard wants to address.
On it, you can't go put vinyl siding. You can't. So your property value drops by the control you've given to that nonprofit. Stays around after.
Then put an easement on the property.
It does at some.
And we may end up with monetary value, but I know we're putting $950,000 into the Toller building will go to 1965, that Art Deco, and right now I don't think we have one that has an easement. Yeah.
A few years ago, people like, well, I just go to my regular bank and get a loan. Why would I need to come to you? But some people to a bank to do that. They can go to this organization that that's very helpful. We'll talk later when we talk about tax credits, how this can be really ranch in Lake County, which has an easement on it that's held by Colorado. It has chapters across Colorado, and they do several things. They work with us to put archaeological certification. So if you want to learn how to do archaeology, you don't want to go back to school to do it. You can take courses through PAC. A firm will be doing a big project, and they need extra hands. Something, and they work under those. Where if there's like remote sites that are archaeological, and they want to make sure they're not getting vandalized or damaged, that they'll send their volunteers out to monitor that site to try to make sure things are good with it. Okay. G's in Colorado, and then there are about another 63 local preservation commissions right now that are not certified. So we have both. And then nonprofit preservation building in Denver, which is a huge undertaking, and they bring in volunteers and send them out across the city, and they've come up with a computer program where people can take their iPad out and type stuff in it and do that, and then they have the professional does go through it to make sure, but they're working on it.
Historical society that's been around. It's not really a
have a preservation, and some historical societies end up being a preservation group as much as they are a historical society too, so you get some doing both.
I don't know if we've had anybody worried about the
Okay.
yeah, cool.
And it's interesting. Communities, they're the ones beating up on the certified. But it's always fascinating to see how you're listening to me. So we'll take a
I'm gonna go submit that grant. I'll be back.
Oh, is that right? Bill?
Yeah, in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
After the
Oriented and.
No, is it
Yeah.
really? Remember that told? Oh, wow.
So, we paid for laws of the bank. And